Okay, good morning. We're on our way to go see our Slovenian attorney in this beautiful country. And let's get some information for people who want to live here. Today we have with us an esteemed attorney from Ljubljana, Slovenia. And this is Ivo. I'm going to butcher your last name. Okay, Ivo, can you tell everybody your last name, who you are, and a little bit about your practice here before we get into the meat of everything?
Yes, the last name is Grlica. It's hard to pronounce, but because of Slovenian language. And I'm attorney from Ljubljana, Slovenia. In our law firm, we deal with immigration law, with tax law, and also real estate law, and also we deal partially also, we support clients also in civil litigation in court procedures. Okay.
And crypto.
Yeah, as well, crypto.
Oh, yeah. So we chose to get together with Ivo today because of his outstanding reputation. Did a lot of research trying to find somebody in the Slovenia area that was a esteemed attorney that we could be comfortable with associating our names with. And so we're very, very happy that Ivo's taken this time with us. But we have a lot of our viewers that are following us, looking to live in different parts of the world, different countries. And Europe is a primary focus of our channel as we travel and spend, typically a month to 3 months in countries and trying to see what it's like to live there, but sharing not only what it's like to live there, but how can somebody live there? And we have people that would like to be part of the Schengen zone Europe area. So Slovenia is part of Schengen. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Schengen, it's a group of 29 countries, and so you'll see the countries here in yellow. It's a group of 29 countries that as Americans we have to look at as being one country in Europe, that we're only allowed to spend 90 days every 180 days in all of these countries. And the blue countries are the non-Schengen area. So Slovenia residency, or if you're able to live in Slovenia, gives you access to the entire 29 countries without that same limitation that you have with the US passport. But currently, if you want to come to Slovenia, you have 90 days every 180 to share with the other countries. But how can somebody live here?
So the way to live here is to obtain a residence permit. This residence permit usually from start it's given as a temporary residence permit, and then it can be upgraded to permanent residence permit, and then ultimately for some clients the goal is citizenship acquisition, which can be obtained after a few years of having residence here, and also taking note of time limitation of residence and not stopping continuous residence here. So this first residence permit can be obtained on various grounds. It can be schooling, education, it can be employment, but most commonly for established or older people seeking for some long-term relocation. The usual way is through financing their own so-called business immigration. So setting up a company and investing in this country, and on this basis it's possible to obtain a residence permit.
So as I understand, when somebody is setting up a business and they're coming here to Slovenia, and so maybe it's somebody that's retiring from the United States, if they were to buy a home in Slovenia under their corporation and be able to rent out that home, would that be the type of corporation that would be able to achieve them status to stay here?
Yes, exactly. U.S. citizen, as OECD member state, any citizens of any OECD member states, and of course also EU member states, they can obtain and purchase real estate in Slovenia as individuals. So corporation is not needed. So if you want to invest in Slovenia, you can purchase a real estate here and obtain income here. This is not a problem. But if you want to finance and obtain a residence permit for yourself, to be located here, to reside here, then it's better to purchase this real estate not as an individual but through a corporation, and because of which in turn invests in this real estate which is being rented out, generates some income, and on basis of this investment, if you of course reach certain thresholds of 50,000 K, which is not hard to achieve given the current prices of real estate here, on this basis you can then obtain a residence permit as a director of such active corporation which has invested in Slovenia and which is actually doing business because the real estate is being rented out. You can of course also engage in other types of business activities, and then also you can obtain residence permit through employment through such corporation, but the easier way, because in this field there are certain limitations. There need to be a check of the labor market, if there are some other unemployed people on the job market which have Slovenian citizens which have a preference to get employed. Of course, I can mention that for foreign specialists, specialized knowledge, and for specific types of activities, usually there is not a problem. Get a residence permit also through employment and demonstrating to the authorities there actually are no qualified people for this specific business or with these specific requirements. But other than that, the most general and the most common type of the fastest way to get a residence permit for such operating active companies through investment in certain asset, which is then generating income and which also supports this business.
So then you would start a company.
Yes.
And there's obviously going to be a minimum on the share capital, right? So I think I read it's 7,500 euros that you have to have invested in the company.
Exactly. This is a minimum share capital to establish a company. Of course, this capital can then be used for operating costs, also for any kind of business expenses, or also in this investment. And in addition to this, because the law demands that the company is not only established, previously there was no such requirement. Later on, the country introduced specific requirements that the company should actually be active. So not only is enough to establish a company and just put in the share capital, but actually the company needs to buy some fixed assets.
All right, so you have to have 7,500 in for the share capital, then you need to spend about 50,000 or more euros on a property, which of course, as we know, is not difficult in Slovenia to do. And then you're going to, can you live in that property then, or you need to rent it out full time? Okay,
I will just specify a bit more through your question. So this investment into fixed assets, it's not in addition to, so it's not 7,500 plus 50,000 investment, but this 7,500 is can be also spent within this 50,000.
Okay,
so
that's
yeah, actually you need to use something, and I need to stress, you actually need to buy something, you need to purchase some fixed assets. So it's not enough just to put the money in the company, or maybe establish a company with a higher share capital. You actually need to purchase something, and also the authorities will check. Have you purchased something? Is the company legally an owner of these assets, to avoid any fictitious contracts on any such kind of activities. So the real estate is not the only thing you can actually, there's no demand. This needs to be a real estate. We have examples where there was some kind of servers or some hardware equipment for some clients who wanted to deal with some IT services, and they invested in this other type of equipment. But usually for foreigners, the real estate is the easiest and also most in demand.
For investment purposes for a company, the Airbnb we stayed in would be perfect. It's the top of this building, and it's a Airbnb that normally would rent for about $4,000 a month for the side we stayed in, and there's a second part that the owner lives in that would probably also rent out for $3,000 or $4,000 a month, and this is 615,000 euros for sale currently. Long-term rent would be about 1,000 euros per month for each side. So it'd be up to you if you're looking at a long-term renter or if you were trying to Airbnb it. This is in the heart of the old town of Ljubljana, near the restaurants, the bars, and the pubs. So let's go ahead and continue this walkthrough of this 2-bedroom on this side and then see the landlord side of this building. We are in the process of moving out. This is our last day staying. So there are some items that are strewn around the room. And take a look in here. So there's Julie. Our dogs have found a nice little area to hang out here by the windows. And hey, our favorite YouTube couple on TV. And coming in here to the kitchen. Kitchen's had everything that we've needed. And it's dishwasher, stove. And so this has been our home for a month. Let's go see the main part of the house where the owner lives. So this is Katya's area. This is where our landlord, here she is, Katya. Oh, she's hiding. Oh, look at this. This nice, big, large bathroom in here. So again, this could be one house, or you can separate it into two. And a nice kitchen in here. Look how high the ceilings are. I like the view over here of looking at the old historic building on the other side there. And then coming out this direction, you've got the living room. And it's very spacious, high ceilings in here. The master bedroom. And a very big walk-in closet. And then you have the ability to just look down at the old town on the street down below. So this is all together, and there's 12 more square meters of storage and down in the basement.
Yes.
Another possibility is also that you do not invest in any fixed assets, which then are generating income. You can also obtain, if the company is older than 6 months. One important factor is that this condition that you demonstrate investment, the company is active, and to qualify to obtain a residence permit as yourself, as a director of such company, this possibility of investment in 50,000 in some fixed assets is only possible within the first 6 months of the company's life. If the company is older, then you need to demonstrate that the company is generating at least 10,000 euro of income.
10,000 a year or a month?
A month.
Okay.
For at least 6 months. So 6 months times 10,000, 60,000, which is kind of hard to achieve, especially in the beginning. And this actually needs to be a business income. It's not enough that, for example, sometimes clients think they can actually loan their own company or some give a loan. Loan is not regarded as a business income. And also this 60,000, they will be taxed. Whereas if you invest in a real estate or some equipment, you can actually use it. So usually you can only obtain one residency permit for one director of such company. So the other spouse or business also it can be different family constellations or different also. Does not need to be family, but also where sometimes they're business partners which want to invest together in Slovenia. So other can obtain residency permit as employees of such company. Of course, we need to demonstrate there is a check on the labor market if such people exist on the job market. So for additional person, you actually need to demonstrate to authorities that you need such particular person with such specific qualification to be able to perform some job function. So it's a bit more trickier, whereas for a director, you can pick yourself, you can pick whoever you want, but for employees, the logic behind the law is that actually we need to check if there are some Slovenians. In the current I would say that there's actually shortage of labor active people, so it's even easier to demonstrate, especially if you then actually require for this specific job some specific experience, knowledge of certain languages and so on, which actually need to be connected to the job. They should not be totally arbitrary, but it can be demonstrated that the targeted people can then actually qualify. The other possibilities for the family members is to reunite the family, family reunification. This is a bit harder to be done, and you need to already live here and reside here for 1 year as a temporary resident, and also you need to extend you need to have an extension of this permit for another year, and then your spouse or children can also qualify to obtain a residency permit through family reunification. However, they need to also demonstrate certain knowledge, at least basic, for the purposes of being able to survive here. It's funny formulation in the law. You need to demonstrate a certain level of Slovenian knowledge. And also another thing we should unpack here, if you live in a part of the house and rent out the other half of the house, we should not forget that this house is owned by the company. The company should be generating income, so if you just stay yourself in the house for free, this could be a problem for tax authorities, because they would say, okay, you should be actually, why are you letting your director or your family members to live in the house for free? The company should be generating income, so they might challenge this. And we have had such situations where they would actually demand that you rent the house to yourself, as you would rent to anyone else. Unless, of course, this is somehow warranted, and then there are different tax structures. What type of, this can be commercial rent under market conditions, or this can be some kind of fringe benefit as an employment if you're employed. So there are different tax treatments of this, but we should never forget, still, nonetheless, after all, the house is owned by a company, not by you as an individual, and it should be used as a business asset. Another possibility would be, of course, if you purchase half of a house yourself as an individual, then obviously you don't need to rent it out to yourself, and the other house is actually a business business investment.
So it might be easier to buy two homes then, so you can either do the one home, rent part of it to yourself, or you can buy it in two separate components potentially, or two different homes, as long as one will generate income, and then you can live in the one that you purchase, or you rent from somebody else and stay somewhere that you don't own.
Yeah, definitely. There are different possibilities. But of course, it depends on the situation. Well, what are actually your goals, long-term goals? Do you want to live here? You will obviously need a place to stay, or you want to purchase some asset as a long-term investment. You can also swap later or transfer ownership. But it's good at the beginning, when you're making these plans, to think about these aspects, and then decide how you actually want to continue these activities.
So with it being one person allowed per company and a fairly low threshold of $50,000 into a company, it might be viable then for people to set up two companies and buy multiple properties. If that's something that they wanted to do, then they can rent a place together. So maybe they rent or buy two homes. One person buys a home under one company, somebody buys a home under another company, they rent it out, and then they go rent somewhere where they live together. So if Julie and I were looking for the easiest slam dunk of how do we come into Slovenia, and we both want to come at the same time, and I don't want to wait a year and a half for my wife to come, does it make sense to try to do two small corporations, buy two small rentable properties? And is there a minimum that needs to be generated from these rental properties?
In practice, we typically still see structure where a couple actually holds one company and sets up business through one company, and then just either waits, or also this immigration procedure, they take time. So 1 year might sound as long, but usually also because of relocation, there are some things to be settled abroad. So time passes, and in practice, people usually wait. We usually don't see such more complex structures with more companies. This could be also potentially problematic if someone would claim that actually you're trying to already avoid the law and just splitting up something which should be or could be probably seen as just one business, real estate family business, I would say. For children or for younger people, a possibility is also to enroll in some kind of international programs, schooling programs, and for such younger people, it's also easier to get a residence permit even before this 1 year. So younger people then also are able to obtain such residency permit somewhat easier.
When you say younger people, what would younger be? Like in college age or 25, 26?
Also elementary school, high school programs. There are a lot of education opportunities offered also in foreign languages. So through this type of education, if being enrolled, then it's also possible for such people to or do some job training. There are different programs, but of course this needs to somehow also fit in the individual situation, and there are also a long-term plan of schooling or education.
So, for example, like in Poland, you can you can get a residency permit through getting an education on the language, learning the language, and you can get it up to 18 months. Does Slovenia offer such a thing?
There would need to be some kind of accredited program, not just some kind of course, and then depending on the individual program, it can be looked into whether it qualifies or not. It needs to be some accredited, legitimate program for some training or education, and based on that, it's then possible to obtain the residency permit. One thing also to mention, not to forget, the authorities do check if you obtain a residency permit. They might check if you actually use it. So there are, in some cases, also inspections where they would ask you, because the logic behind it, we give you the residency permit with some purpose, be it schooling, be it business activities, be it employment. So authorities don't like people who would just obtain a residency and then actually not be here or travel somewhere else in Europe and actually not reside in Slovenia. There was a question I read recently on some Facebook group: can I obtain a residency permit in Slovenia, but I would actually want to buy a house in Italy because it's cheaper? Is this okay?
So what's the that actually is leading to my next question. What is the minimum stay that someone needs to stay in Slovenia to keep that residency permit and keep renewing it?
Okay, so for temporary residency, authorities do understand that it's temporary. So you do have some family obligations, maybe some job-related, some business-related obligations elsewhere in your origin country or even some third country. So you're not tied to Slovenia, but you need to be able to actually demonstrate that you do exercise this right of temporary residency here. So we have also helped and supported the clients in such procedures where there was a question or there was a doubt whether someone's living here, and these interviews would include questions. For example, okay, so if you live here, where do you buy groceries? Can you name how the grocery shop is called, or what is this? Can you name three streets in a town where you live, or where do you go to the doctor? So things which someone who is here would actually know. Would say, yeah, of course, I buy this grocery shop, and my kids go to this kindergarten, and we spend some social activities in this in this hotel or in this sports club, and which of course someone who is not actually here would not know. But it's very, very banal and very funny questions sometimes. But it's not that strict. It's about assessment. Do you actually know how your street is called, and are you familiar with your neighborhood and so on? So this is for a temporary residency. So living in Italy and claiming to be a resident here would not work out. Authorities would not like that.
Is there a path to turning your temporary residency into permanent residency? And is there even citizenship as an option at some point?
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. After 5 years, you can qualify to be a permanent resident, which is much more a stable status, more long term.
Mm-hmm.
So no renewals needed any longer. But here you do need to demonstrate that you have more continuous residence in Slovenia. Also, obtaining your tax residency, a status of a tax resident, would be required. You need to, authorities do check if you are a tax resident, so you have a nexus with Slovenia, you have a central or vital interest here. And you should not leave the country for more than, when you apply, you need to demonstrate that you did not leave the country for more than 6 months in a row, and 10 months in total. And then after you qualify for citizenship, this is after 10 years, through so-called naturalization, then you actually, these thresholds are even higher. So you should not leave, you should be continuously residing for citizenship for the past 5 years.
Without leaving for 5 years?
You can leave for shorter time periods, but not more than not more for 60 days in a year.
So you should be planning to live in Italy.
Yeah. Not more than 60 days. So it's approximately 2 months. It's counted in here. It's counted already in days. For a permanent, it's in months. Here is already in days for more than 60 days. Unless, of course, there are some objective circumstances, COVID was objective, or some healing, or some therapy, or some education. So something which is objective and can be up to 120 per year. We're talking per year. For the past 5 years, but it's then advised to actually keep track where you are. So keep invoices or bank statements of purchases here in Slovenia, or spending also some holidays, being a part of some social clubs, sport clubs, and any kind of gym club, or have some membership in a swimming for some swimming pool or whatever, to actually demonstrate that you were here, that you were present.
You have a life here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had situations, because it's hard to remember where you were. Sometimes it's hard to remember where you were last week or a few weeks ago. And for 5 years, and then you get this questions when you apply. You have a question from authorities. Okay, in September of 2021, where were you? It's then hard to remember. And you call your friends, or maybe we were checking because this client, she was actually studying, she had exams at that time, and we were trying to remember what kind of exams she passed and what kind of exam she failed, and it's hard to collect this. So we advise clients always keep track of your staying here, so you're able to demonstrate that you were here, that you were doing some activities, and there's also written proofs. It's easy if you know that you need to demonstrate this, but if you don't, then it might be hard to recollect everything for the past.
Now, going back to about the company, I'm assuming there are going to be accounting fees for the ongoing company expenses, because you're going to need to show all of this. Do you know approximately what someone could expect to pay for that per month?
Okay, this of course depends on the accountants. I would not say that it's very expensive. It depends on the scope of business, it depends on the individual deal with the accountant. It can be 100, 200 euro per month. Usually we advise clients not to try to save too much money on accountants. You should have a proper accountant who knows the laws, who follows the current administrative practice, case law, if something changes. Because still, again, if it's a company, it's a business activity, let's not forget that you need to comply with the tax code, you need to do proper reporting, because if something goes wrong, the company will pay the penalty, and also the director would pay the penalty, not the accountant. That was actually a funny case when they wanted actually to push this administrative penalty. It was not high, but still they wanted to push on the accountant, stating that they were not informed. But the court said, if the accountant would pay the penalty, then we actually don't achieve the purpose of the law, which is that the director is actually ultimately responsible for have legal operations and complying with all the laws. So usually it's good to have someone who knows what she or he is doing.
Okay, so we're diving into the topic here of taxes. So I'm going to ask you a question kind of two different ways here, okay? Because maybe it's two different answers. You open your corporation, you start making money from that corporation. Obviously, this money is going to be taxed by Slovenia, because this is income being generated in Slovenia through your corporation. And you have your director is now living here, and potentially you are the director. Does this director now have health care through the system here? And does this director that is now working under the corporation get taxed on any of his worldwide income from other locations? Like if somebody has money from the United States from either a pension, a retirement, commissions from different business that they do outside of the country of Slovenia, is that held back separately and just the Slovenia operation is being taxed, or what happens?
Okay, I'll now again answer with a lawyerish question with it depends. So it depends on many factors. Of course, every situation can be different. There are lots of nuances which can totally change the situation and also the outcome, and that's why law is fun, and case law is also fun to follow. But just to give it a general direction here, and to unpack, of course, you need to actually to have a residency permit and to prolong it, you need to have health insurance. Social contributions are mandatory in Slovenia as are taxes, so you would have this health insurance. Of course, then the question is, does this public health insurance suffices for your specific needs? You can also have a private insurance, or if you require some specialist treatment, but you will actually need to have social insurance here. Now, as of taxes, this is then the question of tax residency status. It's separate from immigration law, and it has a bit different. It's connected. Because if you're living here, you have a business here, you have economic ties, you have your spouse here, your kids here, you're establishing a nexus with Slovenia, which can, and you're also physically present here. So you're creating a nexus with Slovenia, more and more ties, and at some point, of course, you can be regarded as a tax resident here. When you are, we can also jump into this topic a bit later, how this is assessed. There are also some specifics here in Slovenia, some specific interpretation, how you can actually become a tax resident, how not, what is more important, what is less important. But once you actually become a tax resident, which is usually a matter of time, if you have a long-term plan here, business here, family here, but still there is sometimes some flexibility, and also you need to plan in advance when you actually will become this tax resident. Once you are a tax resident, of course, Slovenia has a system of taxation on worldwide income. So whatever you earn elsewhere, and also potentially pensions. Again, there are some specifics. If it's government pension or it's like public pension. If it's a pension from some public service, it's taxed differently. But all this income will be taxed in Slovenia, as well as in source, where it might have already been taxed. So in such situations, we need to look into double tax treaty, how actually to resolve this issue of either double residency status or resolving the issue of double taxation. If you're taxed elsewhere and here, how to actually allocate taxation rights from different states to tax you.
And what is the percentage for your social tax? What does that cost for the director? Is it a percentage or is it an exact amount? In some countries it's a...
And is there a minimum wage that the director needs to be earning?
Yeah, of course. This is prescribed, and these thresholds are set up and they're connected also with the minimum wage. And then as the wage increases, also this social contributions increase. They're set up in certain percentages. But also you will be subject, this is also important to mention, you will be subject to a progressive scale of income tax, which reaches up to 50%. So this also can influence your decisions on tax planning and structurings, and also need to be aware of this relatively high rates of tax.
What limit can somebody earn before they're paying 50%?
I would need to check the table, but it's rather comparable to American standards. It's relatively low.
It's relatively low?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's so hopefully we'll see what that will be, but yeah, that 50% is quite high.
And for example, we own a home in Montenegro. If we decided to, if we were residents here in Montenegro, if we were residents here in Slovenia, and we sold our house in Montenegro, and of course there's capital gains there, would we be taxed in Slovenia if we were tax residents? Would we have to pay taxes on our sale?
Mm-hmm. Again, for any particular sale of assets and realization of capital gains, first we should check double tax treaty, how this is resolved. So general answer is, of course, if you're a tax resident here, you will be taxed here, you need to report this income here, but how exactly you will be taxed for this double tax treaty should be consulted, and also in some double tax treaties there are also different possibilities how this is then structured. Is it was a company sold, it was like a real estate sold. and so on. But usually Slovenia would grant a relief and a credit for the tax that was paid outside.
Okay.
We also have one additional law, additional tax, which can also be applied in extreme circumstances, but maybe it can also be mentioned. This is a tax on unknown gains or unknown income. So if someone is living like a king, but officially they're declaring a very small amount of money, then the government can say say, okay, there's some discrepancy. Maybe you're not doing anything illegal. If you were, then there could be some criminal procedures even. There's discrepancy between what you declare and what you obviously have. Expensive luxury car, you have yacht, you have, I don't know, helicopter, whatever, but you have like minimum wage. So we'll just assess your expenditure and we'll apply a high tax of 70% on this.
Wow.
Yeah, and in this situation, the burden of proof is on you. How you got this money? So maybe you did not declare something. Maybe you can now declare something, can make it right. So this is also, I would say, for extreme circumstances, when money appears from some unknown source, maybe from crypto. In this case, people also need to then prove, okay, how did you got this millions? Were you mining Bitcoin or not? And then, so again, advice: keep records. It's sometimes hard to keep records in crypto field, especially from before. From the early days, and there was different exchanges, different also blockchains, and some exchanges got missing, and the airdrops and this and that. But again, advice to have a good accountant.
So to circle back a little bit, capital gains rate here in Slovenia is it 25%?
Yes.
Okay.
But after 20 years, if you have a holding period of 20 years, then it drops down to zero.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So, yes.
So hold your Bitcoin for 20 years and then it's zero, maybe?
No, Bitcoin is always outside of capital gains tax. It can be like business income or tax-free for now.
I think that was your joke.
Yeah.
Well, what will happen? And there are also always there are some nuances. So, for example, also if it's your personal house and you're residing there for several years, you can also sell this house and purchase a new house. It was your primary residence, and you were registered in this house. You can also sell this house tax-free and then purchase something different. Even before this 20 years. But there are also different additional 2% tax on the sale of real estate. It can also maybe mention. It's smaller tax, but maybe also important.
And having just done a series on France that we did, we learned a lot on death taxes, inheritance taxes, exit taxes. Does Slovenia have any of these?
We do have inheritance tax, where it depends on the type of relative. So if you pass something to children, or if you pass something to your spouse, it can be tax neutral for the recipient. There is, however, still a need to declare a capital gains tax on the person who is gifting something.
Okay.
Yeah, so this goes for gifts and this goes also for inheritance, because if you gift something instead of selling, you still, from the government's point of view, you're still realizing a capital gain. You just waived your right to payment, but from the government perspective, you still receive an income because you realize a gain. So you should actually do notification. It's possible to do this in a tax neutral way, but you need to declare this. So there's also a lot of confusion in practice, and again, when engaging in any kind of deals, gifts, even within the family, do this properly, go to advised accountant or a tax attorney. But on the recipient's side, again, you need to declare this, but there will be no tax. If, for example, you're gifting something, or if here's are your parents, brothers, sisters, through your parents' line, then there will already be taxes. And if it's more distant relatives, higher taxes, and also if it's totally a third person who is not related, then these taxes will be even higher. It does not go to 50%. There's again a scale. It's a different scale with a lot of progressions and with thresholds, which also I don't remember from my head. I'm bad with numbers, but it can go up to 38%.
38%.
Yeah.
So that's the max is 38% on the gift tax.
Yeah, approximately. Depending on the amount. So two factors. Depending on the amount, the more expensive the gift or inheritance. In the higher this progression on the scale you fall in, and your distance, family distance. So you have these two factors taken into account. And there's a general exclusion. So up to 5,000, this may be interesting to know. So up to 5,000, there's a tax exemption for smaller gifts or just cash up to 5,000. It's again tax-free, but you should declare. And also, it's advisable to do all these type of transactions in a notarial form, in writing, so you have a proof of source of income. Any kind of deals between spouses should be in notarial form anyway. It's required by law. And just as a general, I'd say it's hygienic to have every this within family things in writing, otherwise it can be challenged by tax authorities, or it can even be null and void.
Okay.
So we got a lot of information from Ivo today. So if you love Slovenia, and it's a beautiful country, there's a lot to really like about Slovenia. The cost of living is a little bit less than the typical EU country, and if you really, really want to come here, there is a road to come here and to live here and to get residency, but there is a cost, obviously. So for everybody, you're going to have to make your own informed decision whether or not this fits the parameters of what you're looking for, and if Slovenia is going to be the right fit for you. So as a reminder, Julie and I were traveling the world trying to see what it's like to live in different countries, and we're trying to share our experiences, our expenses with you, and not just show you what it's like to live somewhere, but how you can live somewhere. So we hope you'll subscribe, give this video a like, and if you need to contact Ivo, shoot us an email at warrenjulietravel@gmail.com. And until next time, have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.